But those numbers from menti.com, MENTI, 25, 51, 18, and 9. I'm going to present my screen now. And then if you're in the chat during the meeting, that's cool. You can do that. Miss Shields and Miss Doherty can help with the chat. So I can't see the chat right now. But if I hear that noise, that means someone's trying to come into the meeting. So let's get started. I'm happy to have this conversation with you. Here's that mention of that menti.com. So now I have to escape here and let somebody in. That's what that is.
Mr. Murata, I'll answer the chat if I can and then stop you if it's something that you need to answer.
Yeah, let's do that. And if I just have to jump back and forth if someone's coming in, I may or may not call them out when they come in here. So, all right. So thank you for being here. This is an important process. This is an important thing. The kids, the parents, the voice, it is important. We are treating it as such. And I'm sorry we're in this predicament, right? You go back in history, your graduation, all these other graduations, great times. It's a great feeling of momentum. And it's like, God, why? So I have empathy, and understanding of that. We want to try to make this as good as a process, as positive as an experience for you. So we get it. And I'm sorry that we're in this scenario. Here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to go over a couple norms. We have a few meetings coming up, but really these norms are kind of for now through graduation, right? How we can operate together, communicate together, etc. We're going to talk about some graduation options tonight. We'll have some discussion time. Again, you could use the chat now with Ms. Shields and Ms. Doherty on there. I can't see if Ms. Prokowski's in right now. We'll talk about time frames. We also want to give you some very important information about two of the activities that are coming up. So, number one, we all have opinions about the pandemic. We have feelings about what has had to happen. Rules from the state, rules from the government, all of that kind of stuff. This is not the time or the forum for you and your opinion about that. It's okay. You're entitled to that. This is not the forum for that. What this forum is for us to talk about the guidelines that we have and then how we're going to operate. How are we going to create amazing experiences and memories for our kids and their families? That's the goal. We could be mad about it. We could be frustrated. We could love our masks, hate our masks, whatever it is, 6 foot, no foot. This is how we're going to operate, okay? Number two, if you can mute when you're not speaking, and then again, use the chat as we talked about. You will have a chance to talk. If you'd like to talk, you don't have to. In making all of these decisions, we're starting our events coming up, all of these things. There's probably, I don't know how many, 15, 20 events coming up over the next 2 months. These are some of our thoughts, right? Is it equitable? Is it safe? What is the cost? These trips that we're running, right? Well, why don't we just get 20 buses? That's hard. You could do that if there was some big donor that came and write a check, but we got to try to make these decisions, based on all these kinds of things. Do they check all the boxes, right? Family, weather, traffic, dates, times, all of those kinds of things. But the most important box is amazing experiences for our kids, honorable, respectful, memorable, right? Parents, families, the pictures, the videos, all of those things, right? We want to try to check all those boxes. I ask you to be open-minded, and my teachers have heard me and the students talk about this a lot, right? We want to be strong and flexible. We got to be able to bend with the breeze. This is not the end of the road. It's a bend in the road. So I ask you to be open-minded. We're doing our best to communicate to you. Some of you tell me to knock it off with the phone calls. Other people say, I love the phone calls. We love your Staten Island accent. Other people say, I can't understand what you say. We're trying to do our best to communicate. I had some really nice emails today from parents. Let's communicate with each other. And it's a two-way street. We're going to continue to try to do the best we can to hear your voice and communicate. I do want to thank all these people. We have many of our officers and advisors on this meeting tonight. They've been working at this for 2 years now, really trying to make it work. I appreciate them, to our advisors, our officers, and the district, from Mr. Rydell, Mr. Pantaleone, Mr. Lenz, my team here, the teachers. You know, we're not asking the question, can we do it? We're asking the question, how can we do it? So, you know, I wanted to thank those people here. We're going to have 2 more parent meetings, and if we decide we need more, we'll add more. You can be live in the Google Meet, or you can be on the live stream here. Sorry, going back to it. So 2 ways to participate in those meetings, and those are the upcoming dates. They're the same links, I hope, but I think they are. All right, one of our mindsets about graduation, right? It is a major moment. We understand that. We treat it as such. Each and every year, it's got bigger and better. We don't treat it as a light deal. We don't treat it as, you know, it's just going to be virtual. Like, it's a big deal. We get it. We treat it as such. Here is what we know. These are the things that we know, right? Right now, we have a limit of an outdoor function, 200 people or less. That's what we know. If we're going to have the conversation of 200 to 500, right now, the guidelines are you have to have a negative test or a proof of the fully vaccinated thing. And we're going to talk more about that. But that's what a situation of having more than 200 looks like. Again, not our opinion on that. These are the guidelines, not Port Jervis guidelines, New York State, all that kind of stuff. We know it's important, okay? With all this outside chatter, last year was absolutely a beautiful day. Today was a beautiful day. We're having this conversation of a rain date. Traditionally, if it rains, we go inside. We've only had that a couple of times. Yes, once was in the middle of the ceremony. That was not fun. But we are having the conversation of a rain date. So don't plan some trip that you're leaving on Saturday the 26th or having a giant party at your house because, you know, we're going to have a ceremony if it's raining. We got to know that things could change, right? This could open up. If there's a cluster in our thing and we have to close down, things could change. So again, bamboo, we got to be flexible. We know that the kids want to have their friends there. They want to graduate with their friends. We are going to record it and live stream it. We had a great company work with us last year. We were not able to get them. We're looking around. We're also looking about buying our own equipment and doing it ourselves. The parade is going to be on. Based on if you've been paying attention about these parades in Port Jervis, whoo, they've been fantastic. We're definitely doing the parade again. A full class ceremony is part of all of these things. If we look at different options, having the kids on Chase Field is part of all of them. I'm not going to mention it in each option. We're going to live stream it and we're going to record it. Okay? And then us working in these meetings, right? This is what we're looking to do. We'd like to hear some more ideas. If we don't talk about them tonight, we want to hear some ideas on here as well. I love this quote. The kids have heard me say it a lot, and I say it here a lot in school. I won't have to read it. You can see it. So this goes for your thoughts on graduation and these ceremonies, the prom, things like that. If you think it's going to be awesome, it's going to be awesome. If you think it's going to stink because we can't have a traditional packed field, fire trucks, all that stuff that's normally there, and you can't get past that, and you think it's going to stink, in your mind it's going to stink. I'm not here to try to change you. We're here to try to tell you to have an open mind and just kind of think about these things and the way we're kind of operating. All right, let's get to it. If you want to kind of write these down a little bit, you know, because I'm going to ask you about it. So option one is that bigger thing on the field, right? Two guests and the graduates. That's going to be around 500, right? It might be a little over. That scenario, you have to have a negative COVID test or be vaccinated. Okay, that scenario there has that. There's a lot of moving parts with that. A lot of logistics, a lot of equity issues there. A lot there. Option one. Option two, all right? Think about the front of our school. I'm in the office here, the front of our school. We'd use pick a time. Let's say this is the 9 a.m. section. They'd arrive at 8:30. They're down by ASK. They're in a little holding thing. At 8:30, they're let in. They park, boom, and we have 20 chairs for the graduates, and behind them, a small pod of chairs. So everyone's in their own little section, right? It's a semicircle in front of the school, smaller group, and it's a shorter ceremony. We say some words, we say some things. They're not all the speeches, all of those kinds of things are there. But there's some, you know, there's some ceremonial type stuff. And then those 20 kids would graduate. 20 kids would graduate. We clap. They get in their cars and they leave, and the next pod comes. Those would be using pick a time, and those would be prearranged times in those pods, kind of like a prom table. This is our table. We submit it. Boom. Okay. Option two, the smaller pod. Option three is a bigger pod. And is this out front of the school or is this on the field? To be decided. Again, similar concept. 30 to 40 students, 4 guests, smaller pods. We have some math teachers on there. That'll keep us right around the 200 or under the 200 number, and with 4 guests. Okay. Again, I got my grandma, my cousin, my brother, my sister, boom. You know, it's live streamed, so they can watch it. But that's just another idea of people and pods. Okay. And if a bigger, could it be on the field? Sure. You know, so something to think about. And the last option, exactly what we did last year. For those that may have had a child last year, you know, we got tremendous feedback. People liked the smaller ceremony. We got to spend 3, 4, 5 minutes with each family. There was 3 families per 15 minutes were those blocks. The cars pulled up, they came, boom, 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 they got out, the kid got out. You were 20 feet from the stage, 15 feet. People liked it. There was conversation. It was cute. The younger brother got to run up on stage with the kid, you know, things like that. Some of the people did link together, right? The close friends, they linked together, and those cars pulled up, so those friends did get to see each other graduate. That kind of happened organically, but they got in those blocks together. So I gave some options. We're going to give you some voice and time to talk here in a little bit. We're going to discuss this. We're going to discuss it some more and build a plan together. We have some more meetings, right? We'll finalize a plan, because you don't want to finalize a plan too soon, right? Because what could happen? It could change. Something can open up. We build this master plan of these pods, and then all of a sudden you get, oh, you can have 2,000 people. Okay, we're going to change our plans. All right. But the goal is to have a final plan so you could build, you know, your plan. I get it. All right. So I didn't write it in here. That code again, 25, 51, 18, and 9. Parents, if you don't know how to do it, you could just watch along. You could use your phone, go to menti.com. And then, or you could split your screen, okay? I'm going to give you a chance to put a vote in, and it's not, you're not married to the vote. It's just to get a feel of the people on the meeting, okay? So I'll give you a few minutes to get on here. There's that code again. You could do it on your phone or split your screen. So give some thoughts. What are your some thoughts on those options? If anyone needs some technical help, again, the advisors are on the chat. Option 3 was the bigger pods. So even here on this meeting, the first three opinions are different.
I'm sorry, Mr. Murata, can I have that code again?
Yeah, it's right up top, 25, 51, 18, and 9.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. This is a good question. In the event that we have to go to option 2 or 3, why would the limit not be 500 people in accordance with the guidelines for option 1? Because that requires a COVID test, negative test, or a vaccine. And again, it's an option on the table. There's a lot of moving parts there. There's a lot of, we decide we're going to do that. They don't have the paperwork. They don't have proof. We're not letting them in. We're arm wrestling with parents. You know, it's a lot of moving parts to having those two different things.
Mr. Murata, Mrs. Zanger raised her hand.
Okay, sure. And we're going to have some time to talk. I'm not going to be sharing the whole screen. So, Mrs. Zanger, if you just want to hold that, we'll have some dialogue. Or if you want to do it right now, I'm going to ask you a few more questions, and then I'm going to stop sharing. We can have some conversation. All right, there's a wide variety of opinions here, which is good, right? So, any additional concerns? Anything that you want to say in there? These are anonymous. Your names aren't attached to it. Don't say mean things about my accent. And again, I'm going to turn this off in a moment. We'll have some conversation. All right, I'm going to keep this moving. Oh, sorry, there it is. I won't be here on the rain date. That's tricky. Let's pray for good weather. Are all options planned on the Friday bearing the weather? That's the date we've had scheduled. There's a lot of things that get booked with graduations, things like that. So it is booked right now. And there's still school going on. Last year, if you remember, we were remote. We had some flexibility there. So, and guys, we went through this last year with the families. There was a little bit of an arm wrestle of what did the parents want, what did the kids want, and we wound up working it out that the parents got to be there in the drive-through, the kids got to be on the field, and it was actually a really good discussion. Will exceptions be made for large families? It came up last year. Well, what about split families, right? It was X amount of people allowed in the car. Well, then it was that, and it all worked out. If people have, situations that they want to ask about, those are phone calls. That's an email asking that kind of stuff. It's hard to do for one and not do for the other too. So, you know what I mean? All right. Anything that we didn't mention? Is there an idea or an option that we haven't mentioned? And again, you're going to have an opportunity to say it verbally if you'd like. You can put it in the chat or you can put it on here. And this has come from discussions with other principals, other schools. This has come from discussion with teachers and the kids. The kids and I and the advisors have been meeting for a couple of weeks here. So. Extra tickets. So a typical rain date graduation, there's tickets. This isn't a conversation about tickets. It's, people. But if you're asking, I'm allowed 4 guests, but I'm only bringing 2. Can somebody else put their 2 guests with me? The answer is yes. Great question here. I'm curious. Everyone's doing it a little bit different. And that was what happened last year. There was no one perfect recipe. Everyone did a little bit different. People did drive-through. People did virtual. Our mindset was we wanted to do the best we can and talk about every option, unturn every stone before we made a final decision. So we're going through a similar process. The answer is it's all over the place. And again, schools like Middletown and Newburgh that have a huge thing, they did ceremonies for days. That's tricky. All right. And certainly if you have anything else, we can put it in the chat. If you had to choose now, so everyone, I would like you to vote. I should have put other in here. I didn't do that as a choice. I'm sorry. But if you had to pick one, which one would you pick? You're not married to your choice. You're not married to your vote now. We're just trying to get a feel of where people are at. It's like I feel like I'm watching a horse race on the computer. And in the lead, number 2 is leading. Oh, but here comes number 3. Mr. Doherty, what do you call that when it's a perfect thing? It's like a perfect parabola. What do you call that?
A normal distribution.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Like the bell curve.
Well, if it means anything to the group here, the students overwhelmingly chose number 2 during the day when we did this with the kids. All right. So the pods are leading here. It's a conversation of the guests, right? And will there be some changes as we go forward? Will there be some announcements about allowing a bigger outdoor gathering? Those, that's what we're kind of hoping for. But this is good information to have. All right. Exit. All right. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Okay. There's a few other things we wanted to go over. Again, I appreciate people being in the meet. I appreciate people watching live. You can raise your hand now. You can go in the chat now. What is something if you want to talk? I know, Ms. Zanger, you had your hand up. So do you want to start, Mrs. Zanger? I'll take that as a no. Mrs. Zanger, I have a serious question. How much influence do you have on Roland's hair? How much do you get involved with the hair? I take that as a no. All right. All right. Does anyone have a question or a comment? A different idea? Is there something that you heard that another school is doing? Okay. Well, where we are in this process, we are going to kind of purposefully move along, right? We have some options here. The more than 200 option is very tricky. There's a lot of moving parts. Those pods, it was really nice last year. I'm telling you, it was really nice. We would decorate out here, and then as we get closer to middle of May, we have that second meeting. We're going to start making some decisions, but those are the options. And kick it around, right? Have a cup of coffee on it. Think about it. Talk to other people. Ask the kids. Ask them what other friends in other schools are doing. Things like that. Okay?
Mr. Marotta, Mrs. Zanger's back in.
She's back. Look at my name on the closed captions, Mr. Miratimus. I went from Italian to Greek. Go ahead, Mrs. Anger.
Okay, so sorry about that. I'm not a Google Meet person. I'm Zoom and Teams. That's what I use in my district. So my microphone has been off, and my son just figured out how to turn it on for me.
There you go. Way to go, Roland.
So I don't get, no, it was Troy, actually. I don't get involved in the hair. No, that's all him.
Okay.
No, I accidentally put my hand up earlier because I didn't catch the code, and then it all happened. So sorry about that.
Mrs. Zaga, we don't use words that say catch and begin with C, right? Because that almost sounded like something else. We don't use that type of language.
So anyway, no, and I didn't get to vote. I would have voted for the larger ceremony, if it matters now.
The larger pod or on?
No, the larger option one.
Okay. And keep in mind, moms and students, the kids are gonna do that. We're gonna do that. If we go with option one, we're not gonna do that, a student only and then a parent. But we're gonna do that anyway. And that was really a push last year that kids really wanted to be together. And that's where we decided to do both of these type things, the drive-through and that, because there was a push. So the kids are gonna get to do that. You would get to watch that. It's not different. It's not as when you're there. I know that. So, but you think about it, if we go with option 2 or 3, you get to have the in-person as well as them watching the film, and you get a recording of it. So, but I hear you, Ms. Sanger.
Oh, so option one is not live for parents?
No, so that option 1 would be a live ceremony on Chase Field with 2 guests. That's going to get us to the 500 number. And one of the components there, Ms. Zanger, is people in attendance have to show positive proof of a vaccine or a negative COVID test within a certain time frame. So,
and does that include the students as well to have a negative COVID test?
I believe so, with the 500 limit. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Murata, when you brought up what other schools are doing, when we were in the county-wide meeting, some schools did say that they're already discussing having students only at graduation, and other schools that are breaking it into smaller graduations. That's what we heard from them, were the 2 options.
And thank you, Ms. Darty. I love the concept of doing more than is expected. Like that's not good enough to have one or the other. And we had all 3 last year: the drive-through, the student ceremony, and the parade. And it was a home run. I mean, it really was, with the circumstances. There were people that said they'd like that better than the big stadium because they got to be so close, It was really, it was, if you know anybody that graduated last year, ask them, ask their opinion. I'm not trying to sell you on the drive-through. I'm telling you that it was classy. It was nice. All right. Well, second half of this meeting is we wanted to have a big kid and big adult conversation here, because there's some things that we wanted the adults to know about some of these upcoming events. So, and again, I will share my screen and then talk about it. So, in learning about these events and the guidelines and all of this. So these 2 upcoming events, Villa Roma is a day trip for the kids. That date is Wednesday, June 9th, with a rain date of June 10th. And yes, you can make fun of me that I still use a little date book. I love it. That means someone's trying to come in the meeting. Sorry. Hi, Kim Pintka. Sorry. We're letting them in. So, these are some things that I want families and parents to know. So for Villa Roma, that trip of June 9th, as well as the prom. These are regulations that they are given as event places, as banquet halls, as a resort place. And because we're going there, we we have to follow these regulations. Again, you can have your opinions on it, and I hear you. These are the things that we have to do to go, and we want to have the opportunity to do these things. We view them as hurdles, not blocks. They're hurdles. We either go around like our track stars, or we jump over them or go around. So 4 things to think about to be eligible to go. Number 1, fully vaccinated. Okay, we're not telling you yes, we think you should. That's a personal decision. It is one of the choices to be able to go to these events. There's some time frames of when you have to do that, but in order to go, May 4th is the last day to get that first shot. That's one option. The second option is this second bullet here, having proof of having been COVID positive within the last 90 days. That's from March 14th on. Okay, so proof of from the doctor, whoever, that you did have COVID. Or the student, and and having the proof of that. Option 3 is you get your own PCR test. So that's the longer COVID test. I was going to ask someone to demonstrate the COVID test up the nose. Ooh, I sneezed. So that would be on your own, but there's time frames of when you have to do it within that 72-hour window. Villa Roma, it's a little tricky because there's a rain date. If you get it 72 hours from the 9th, and then it gets pushed to the 10th, and they're not in. So there's some time frames. And the last option is the rapid test. And that has to be, yes, unbelievable, within 6 hours of the departure of the trip. So the district is able to provide some of those rapid tests. We can't do 150 rapid tests before a 7:30, 8 a.m. departure of the Villa Roma trip or of the prom. We'd be able to do some. You also can get that on your own. We know there's a cost associated with that as well, especially at some of the urgent cares. There's a cost. So these are things that we want parents to know and the students to know for these 2 venues. Dorney Park doesn't have that. It's in Pennsylvania. It's the Wild Wild West. They don't have the same regulations. Events here at the school, they don't have that. These are with these venues that have that. So 4 options again. First one, a full vaccination. You have to have that first shot by May 4th to hit those time frames. Second one, positive COVID test within the past 90 days. PCR test, that's the longer COVID test, within 72 hours, or the rapid test within 6 hours. I know that was a lot. I'll stop sharing now and go back to the meet. Questions on that, comments on that, thoughts on that? The prom, we wanted to have the prom, right? We wanted to do it. We had schools booked. People had said, well, why don't you book something else? Why don't you, there's a mad rush for these venues to book these things. They get booked years out. So we've had schools, we've had a down payment with them. I think last year's actually just last year's paid, right? They gave us the money.
The down payment for Cools was donated from last year's class when their prom was canceled.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Thoughts on that? Any questions on that? Ms. V?
Was it looked at to possibly do the prom at an outdoor venue? Like I understand that Cools was booked, but maybe even putting up like beautiful tents on school property where all of the students, like it just seems sad to have prom with a number that not every senior can attend. It doesn't seem fair. And it just seems like maybe there's an option where could Cools hold their deposit for next year's class? Could we somehow reallocate funds, have a tent on school property, and allow every senior to be able to go and not have to exclude anyone?
We really wouldn't have typically every senior attend the prom, so we wouldn't be excluding anybody from attending. We're at the 150 number, which typically less than that in the number of seniors attend the prom.
But what if, I don't know, this is my first go around with this. Like if they bring if students bring guests that are not part of the senior class, they're underclassmen, that those spots would limit. So possibly a sophomore might take the place of a senior who wanted to go. I don't know anything about the attendance of prom, but it's just something that I was thinking of.
Yeah, those are good. Ms. Vic, how it's going is we are starting with the seniors first. We are still going down the road of, well, what then if it's a current Port Jervis student, and the third is an outside guest. There hasn't been a final determination of that. Again, looking at all these things of equity, et cetera. So the first is that if the space is for the seniors first. And then again, we haven't got a perfect answer on that. We have to make a decision on that soon. But we understand there's people that date underclassmen and or former graduates, things like that. So we want to try to look at those options too. So we haven't made a final decision on that. We're kind of going through it all. A tent, all of those things are ideas, Ms. V, and that's on. There's a lot with that. I'm not saying it couldn't be done. The class has done a lot of work to get to Cools and worked with them. I know Ms. Doherty's probably met with the Cools family how many times. We did have a conversation about outdoor venues with the kids and the planning of it. And really, after going through that, it was like, all right, well, let's go with the regulations that they're having, and let's go with that. There's a lot of guarantees there of the food, the place. We know that there's a lot of variables when you start kind of going outside that. But I know you kind of, and that's okay to kind of throw ideas out there. We don't want to stomp on any ideas, And will Cools get some opening of regulations? That's what they have now. Any other questions about those 4 COVID options and that kind of stuff?
I think Mr. Costello has a hand raised.
Go ahead, Mr. Costello.
Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Yeah, I agree with Shannon in regards to, like, if you could have it like an open venue on the field somewhere where a tent could be set up. They make beautiful venues for weddings and stuff. It could be done for a prom. My next concern, I just want to tell that I agreed with her, because then I think the options are limitless, and we're not closed up to who can attend and how many people. But the other thing is, were the seniors asked whether they would like the venue to be?
Good questions, Mr. Costello. The class officers, there's prom meetings. Those things have been ongoing. So they've had those conversations. The conversations of the prom start happening in the kids' junior year, into their sophomore year of what they want. But those are conversations with the officers and the advisors there, as well as taking input from the students. So, yeah.
Okay.
And
I'm
then
gonna go with that. I believe that just like they did homecoming, it could be done outside. Where there's less restrictions. We're not going through with the COVID test, or if you're vaxxed or not. And,
yeah.
And the senior could bring, underclassmen, like you said, a person that's graduated already, that's not in the district, and I think you're going to have more attendance that way. Kids are happier that way when they could bring their guests that they want to bring. And you're not restricted to a places telling you what we could do.
Yeah. And the guests are still kind of out there. There's not a no, Mr. Costello. There would still be the regulations here. Doing a tent here on the grounds would get us to 200.
Yeah. But that's 50 more people.
Absolutely. And we don't want to turn anybody away. What we're seeing, Mr. Costello, traditionally, nothing to do with COVID, you would probably get 60%, 60 to 70% of the kids to go to the prom in a regular year. We're seeing participation at events right now, maybe even less than half. So,
Yeah.
Our graduating class is going to be probably 160 around there. Does that mean there's going to be 80 to 90 kids going to the prom? That would be on the high side, Mr. Costello.
So then with that even, furthers my point where, we could do that at the school with a beautiful venue, and the seniors that choose to go can have whatever guests they'd like to have there. And we're not worried about COVID tests or if they're vaccinated. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah, something to think about.
There was a discussion of this when we met with Mr. Rydell. He was saying that students attending the prom, there's an inherent risk that they're all going to be together. If they're at the prom, they're sitting in a pod at their table, and that's who they're allowed to dance with. But once we invite an outside guest, which is why we don't know if we would ever be allowed to do that, now you're introducing a person who doesn't typically go to school with the students. So it brings up other issues. So, and this was Mr. Rydell speaking, and he's not here, so I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he did say that that's where the outside guests could be an issue. I know that when we met with the county, there was no other school allowing, well, some schools were not having a prom. Some were having more than one smaller prom because they have much larger graduating classes. None were allowing anyone other than the seniors. That was off the table for them in their meetings from their superintendent. For us, we weren't, Mr. Mott, am I correct? We weren't told absolutely no, but I don't know if we're going to be allowed.
Yeah, we haven't made a decision on that. Just like I talked about in the beginning of the meeting, we want it to be equitable, safe, and have the opportunities for the kids to have amazing experiences. If someone's dating an outside guest, it's on the table right now. Ms. Doherty raises the point of it's just an outside person. You throw in the safety regulations of they had a negative COVID test, or they're vaccinated, it changes that. So it is on the table now. The spots are first going to go to our seniors. We would anticipate, based on what we've seen, there's going to be plenty of room. Our guess is there will be 70 to 80, somewhere in there, 90 seniors that go.
Mr. Mott, Mrs. Ormick also next had hers, and then Mrs. McElroy.
I guess I'm done.
Mr. Rada, I just had a question in regards to the prom funds and the semi-formal that was canceled last year. Are the funds that didn't get returned to the children, is that going towards their prom ticket? How is that working?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
If the student had money for the semi-formal ticket that they paid in the spring and that was not requested to be returned to them, because we offered that as an option, then they had a certain amount. We're not allowed to give students money, have credits in their accounts, and they've had a lot of opportunities already to spend those credits. So some students have some. We can answer on a dime how many credits each student has. They've been emailed that many, many times. Some students use the credits to pay for their yearbook. Some use them for Dorney Park. They're already paying for Dorney Park using those credits. So absolutely, they can use any credit that they have for any of the events that we host that have a charge. And we have those amounts, and any student can ask us for them in a moment. Okay.
Thank you.
They've also used it for the ski trip or for a yearbook as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. McElroy?
I just wanted to comment back at Mr. Costello. I was thinking, like you said, if we did allow outsiders, why wouldn't we offer the option of a COVID test or vaccination record? So that does allow our seniors to bring the people they want. And if it's a smaller number, we can control who's coming in, and it wouldn't be as cumbersome for those people having to have those tests and having to have someone check it. I think it's their senior year. And if we can do anything possible to make it a little bit better for them, it's not about us. It's going to be more work. I mean, you know that we watched a whole football season. It was a lot of work, a lot of moving parts, but it can work. And, you know, you have people that are willing to help. And I just think we should give these kids every single opportunity we can to make everything they're going to get enjoyable for them. And if we're going to have a low number, then it's easy to keep track of. And I just think we should do everything that we can to make sure that everybody gets a choice, gets a chance to participate, so that no one's left behind in what they would like for their senior year.
Good point, Ms. McElroy. We're encouraging the kids to come to the meetings. All the seniors are invited to the meetings. We started to move them in person to the library. It's set up where we're spread out. And the meetings are live streamed also, and all the seniors have it. So, you know, the officers have been involved, the advisors, and a small group of kids have been coming. So,
Miss Doherty, we do have a prom meeting, and we put that out to the kids as well on Monday afternoon. What time?
The prom meeting is Monday afternoon in my classroom, right after school, directly after the bell, 2:15. So, and that's open to all the seniors, not just the officers. So please encourage your kids to come and attend the meeting.
we have a few minutes left. I appreciate people raising their hand and talking about it. It's good to talk these things out, guys.
Jenny McElroy or Mr. Costello, do you guys have any other? Oh, Mrs. Zanger's hands up, 3 hands.
Sorry.
Who's first?
You're up, Ms. Zanger.
I just wanted to know about the COVID testing that you mentioned as a possibility, the rapid testing. What would that look like in terms of the events coming up? Would that be done at the school? Would that be done at a doctor's office that's affiliated with the school district?
Great question. Again, with the COVID test, the PCR and the rapids, there's certainly the option for the family to do it on their own. We have a limited number of rapid tests, and we would do probably a pick a time, a little reservation system for kids. We've been talking with our nurses about what that will look like and the setup of it. Because again, there's moving parts, there's medical, the person has, trained to do it. But as, we're going to work out the logistics with our nurse. But for example, an option, one of the ideas we talked about, there's a time, 7:30 to 7:45. That block is allowing, 6 kids, 7 kids. We use the All States gym, the back by the mods. So you think about when you're driving up, the back, the side of the building there. The kids enter the All States gym, they get the test, and then they exit out by the old weight room, by the boys' locker room doors. And then you have to wait. You got to wait the 15 minutes for your result. Boom, you get your result. We have the positive test. However, the kid takes the picture. However, we're going to register that. Did I say positive test? I meant to say negative test. Sorry. And we go from there. So that's just one of the ideas. We couldn't accommodate 150 people in that time frame for, but again, some kids have already gotten vaccinated. Some kids have got COVID. So that's going to take people out. I'll say this, team, and I got some dialogue with people about, well, how come we're not doing the HBE on the I almost said COVID walk, graduation walk. An exposure at any of these things is going to trigger a quarantine. And that's, Ms. Doherty used the R word there, risk. So for example, if a kid is exposed on the Wednesday at Villa Roma, on the bus, at the place, they're not going to be eligible for the prom. If a kid is vaccinated, they're not required to quarantine for an exposure. This is not a Port Jervis rule. This is the state mandate. We've been doing this, for a while now at the school. I do the contact tracing. I've talked to some of you with this. So that is something to think about regarding these events and your child and participation. Nobody wants to see anybody get knocked out of the prom. So one of the main reasons about not putting the kids on the buses to go to this graduation walk was because I didn't want to have the kids go on the bus. Then all of a sudden, Friday afternoon, everyone's excited. They get their prom gowns, woo! And I get a call at 4 o'clock that so-and-so tested positive. And then who did they sit next to on the bus? And now we're calling those people and saying, your kid's not going to X, Y, and Z. So we want to limit those exposures, but that is something to think about going forward with these events in terms of vaccination versus the negative test. But it's a risk. It's going to be on all the permissions that I understand there's a risk of blah, 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 because that's just something to think about. That risk is there every day on the bus. You coming to school, right? That risk is there. Our classrooms are 6 foot apart. So when the kids are in their desks, in their chairs, the classrooms, the cafeteria, it's not considered a contact. So that's how the school is set up. On the bus, it's a contact. They're not 6 foot apart.
The other thing that we stressed to the kids who were in the meeting the other day, if they must get tested at the school the day of the prom, we are going to beg them not to show up together. If they drive in a car together and 6 kids are in a car and 1 tests positive, the rest cannot go to the prom if they're not vaccinated. And we really don't want that to happen. So that if they do end up having to get tested at the school, they should come by themselves.
Thank you for the information.
Go ahead, Shannon.
In connection with the grad walk, and Mr. Murata, I had emailed you about that, and you got back to me. Thank you. There have been really no field trips at the end of last year, this year. Is there money? Like, if it's a transportation issue, can we pool money? These graduates are not just Port Jervis High School graduates. They're graduates of ASK, HBE, the middle school. The buildings are filled with teachers who are so proud of them that want to welcome them back. There are students there who have siblings. We're parents. We want our children to come. Is it a possibility to bring in all the buses, pool that field trip money, sit the kids 6 feet apart? Or I don't know what the rules are. I know there's 3 feet apart if they're not eating, and I don't really know exactly what it is, but allow the parents to sign waivers for them to drive themselves so that they can go everywhere. These kids, elementary school, we have them for 7 years. They're there. That's the start of their home, and we do want to welcome them back. The kids want to go back. Like, isn't there anything that we can look at? You have HBE kids, and I know that the idea was thrown out that maybe just the HBE kids can go back out there. But they're a senior class, and they are a tight group. They've been through hell and back. And I just think that we have to look at all options instead of just saying we can't do it because of 6 feet apart. And don't get me wrong, I know these senior class advisors are working their tails off, and I am so grateful for everything that they are doing for our kids. I know it's long hours, and we appreciate that. But can we pool all our ideas to try to figure out how to do everything? As Jenny said before, make it the very best that it can be. We want all of these kids to come through HBE. We throw a huge party, and selfishly, I have been waiting for the day to see Connor walk through that parking lot with that music blaring and our kids screaming with signs. It's something that I don't want these kids to miss out on.
Yeah. No, she wrote a really nice email with those considerations. And again, I explained the reasons about the buses. It's not a financial thing. And just so everybody knows, the district, you talk about the field trip money, the district is paying for the senior trip to Villa Roma and to Dorney Park. traditionally the kids' funds pay for that. So the district is paying for those two things. You know,
Mr. Murata, we were told only Dorney Park that the buses were paid for. Did that change?
if I misspoke, Miss Carolyn, I don't know. I thought it was both. I don't want to misspeak on the meeting. I thought it was both. Again, that was a while ago. So the district is paying for busing, exactly what it is. If I misspoke, I apologize. Ms. V, all I can say is we will take a deeper look at it. I can't say that, I'm going to put these kids on that bus and allow that to happen. Again, could it be something where the seniors gather up there on their own at a certain time that they're able to work out? I understand it's not the whole class. But again, equity issues, safety issues, all of those things I talked about, and I don't want to keep repeating it, but setting that up on that day. So where's the balance of checking all those boxes, like I said, but again, not running a bus there because of that risk, because those are crushing phone calls of, I got this test, and it's like, oh my God. And now it's like, all right, where were they sitting on the bus? Who were they sitting next to? Who is the roulette wheel of, you're not going to the prom because next Friday is the prom. So that if that happens on that senior day, that the COVID walk, the graduation walk, that's a big thing. Could it happen where there's not a contact in there? Could it happen with it where it's not that 6 feet on the bus? Right now, that's not a logistic that we have. And again, the buses with the setup and the 6 foot, but could it be a thing where either the HBE come or they go on their own? I'm open to looking at that too. To make it an optional type of thing, because that's hard to do that, But we agree with you. Let's do everything we can. Let's ask every question, unturn every stone. Nobody's disagreeing with any of that mindset. But there have to be decisions. And where's the balance? Where is we're not going to do that. The discussion about the prom, there's been a lot of discussion about the prom. You run an event here outside the direction of a catering hall with professional service. That's a ton of moving parts, and it's April 28th. You're talking food, you're talking securing people, you're talking decoration. There's a gazillion things. Whereas we have that booked already. Going outside that would be tough. I'm not saying it's impossible. That would be tough at this point in the game because the kids have been having the prom conversation, even going back to last year of we're going to Cools. That decision was made with the leadership of the class. So that it's a challenge to look at that this late in the game. That conversation happened last year. So there's no final decision about the guest yet, and we don't want to see anybody not be included. That is certainly something that we are being mindful of. So it is 7:02, guys. You've been great. I do have some pickup responsibilities of my children that I'm going to be getting to. But any last questions or comments? And again, a phone call here, an email, things like that. We're going to send out this recording. We appreciate you being on here, but any last questions or comments for the group?
There's a couple people that had their hands up. I see them on the screen and they didn't get asked.
Go ahead. Someone can unmute. I know some hands remained up there.
I just wanted to say, as a current senior who did attend HBE, that graduation walk back to HBE is really important to me. And just to come full circle and look back at what I've accomplished through high school to come back to HBE is really important to me. If there is a way that we could do more busing, I think that would be really appreciated not only by the HPE kids, but by my whole entire class. Because I also want to participate in Dorney and Villa Roma and all of these senior trips to be out with my friends like in these last couple weeks. But just to have it be ruined by somebody testing positive, even if I were the person to be tested positive, I would feel awful. Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize the importance of that.
Thank you, Lorelai. Somebody else? All right, lots to digest, lots to think about. You did great, certainly ending with a student voice here, so we appreciate it. Again, don't hesitate to reach out. You don't have to wait till the 18th, for the next meeting, but we'll know more. We'll know more in those few weeks. Hopefully we get some, again, purposeful procrastination, right? We're going slowly along. Hopefully there's some widening of some of these things and some movement there. So thank you. We'll get this recording out and we're going to sign off here. Can we get a virtual GoPort? How about it? Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. GoPort.
Go for it.
Go for it.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everybody. Good night. Good night.